Good evening. Chair would like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Barrington. It is Tuesday, February 12th. Thank you, 2019. And we're getting a late start for the record at 7:14 p.m. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Burke. Trustee Mitchell.
Here.
Trustee Perkins.
Here.
Trustee Rigby.
Here.
Trustee Schaller. Trustee Thompson. President Richardson.
Here, and with the record note that we have a quorum. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Agenda item 4 this evening is approval of the minutes. Are there any questions or edits or comments for the clerk on the minutes of either the special committee of the whole meeting last month on January 8th or the Board of Trustees meeting that same evening? There being none, Chair would like a motion to approve the minutes in block. Agenda items 4A and B, special committee of the whole, January 8th, meeting of the Board of Trustees, January 8th. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Rigby, seconded by Trustee Mitchell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Okay, motion carries. I will ask unanimous consent that the record remain open for a period of 5 calendar days for purposes of necessary and technical conforming edits. Agenda item number 5, President's remarks. This is a little inside baseball, but this past week, legendary Democratic U.S. Congressman John Dingell of Michigan passed away in his early 90s. He was a tremendous patriot. And I have sat in this chair and benefited because I watched him wield the gavel for years as chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee in the U.S. House. He was a tough partisan, and he was an absolutely principled and honest and decent man. He was a fine legislator. He had the privilege of serving as the longest member of Congress in the history of the U.S. House. And his wife, his widow, occupies now the same seat in Congress he had. I have always looked forward to a chance to meet with her and just tell her that everything I learned about how to run a meeting and manage a gavel in this setting, I learned from him. And I'm very, very grateful. So I will simply leave that as a comment for the record. The other thing is I attended this past month, and this will save me from giving my committee report later, the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual winter meeting in Washington, D.C., as is my practice. I do not bill the village for my travel. I attended a number of very interesting sessions. IT and cybersecurity was a big one. It was a topic of our discussion in the Committee of the Whole earlier this evening. Immigration reform, and then trends in municipal finance were all part of it. I really find a lot of value in meeting other mayors and learning how other communities, especially the medium and the smaller sized ones, are tackling things. So that's my comment for tonight. This is the first chance in the village board meeting or agenda tonight under number 6 for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. I see no one seeking recognition. So we can move to the consent agenda. There are a number of items in the consent agenda. And as we know, except that tonight, thank you very much, we are going to defer action or consideration of 7B until the next monthly meeting. So the consent agenda tonight will consist of 7A, annexation of a portion of Featherland property, C, IDOT resolution for construction on state highway, D, travels expenses, Springfield, E, consideration of the resolution of the Village of Lake Barrington, Illinois, reallocating 2019 volume cap to the Village of Buffalo Grove, responding to a request of the Lake County partners. And Illinois law, when we talk about the consent agenda, allows us to approve by a single omnibus vote items on the consent agenda. It's to help facilitate and foster prompt disposition of the public interest. Following the motion, second and brief discussion will be held on any of these designated items. And we can certainly postpone any that become subjects of greater discussion or debate. So with that, 7A, I'll ask the administrator to walk us through this, please.
Sure. Item 7A, annexation of a portion of the Featherling property. The northeast portion of the Featherling property that the village recently purchased, about 0.4 acres of it, is actually outside of our corporate limits. So now is the time to, since we, to annex that so that it will all be within our village limits. You want to go through the others of this?
Yes, please.
Item 7C, the IDOT resolution for construction on state highways. That's basically to reaffirm with IDOT that our permitting process does require the permittee on any project that requires a permit adjacent to a state highway or doing work in a state highway gets the appropriate IDOT permits, which we already do that, which is great. Item 7D, the travel expenses. As you know, a couple weeks ago, I went down to Springfield to make a presentation in front of the IDNR board for the OSLA grant. Our village board expenditure policy says the room rates need to be no higher than the United States General Services Administration, also called the GSA rate. And the room where I had a hotel was $5 higher. So in the quest for transparency, the board needs to approve that. Item 7E is the consideration of our allocation to the 2019 volume cap to the Village of Buffalo Grove at the request of the Lake County partners. This is something we do annually. We transfer our portion of the state's private activity bond allocation to the Village of Buffalo Grove. They act as a clearinghouse with Lake County partners for that, for businesses that would like to apply for this sort of activity bond allocation. And because of this, throughout the region, together, all the home rule units in Lake County have been able to fund over $200 million in local projects.
Okay, before I call the consent question, the omnibus question, would any trustee like recognition for purposes of discussion on items A, C, D, or E? There being none, the chair would like a motion in block to approve items 7A, 7C, 7D, and 7E as set forth in the agenda and as described previously by the administrator. May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
By trustee Mitchell. May I please have a second?
Second.
By trustee Rigby, thank you both. Clerk, will please call the roll.
Trustee Mitchell,
Yes.
trustee Rigby, trustee Perkins,
Yes.
President Richardson.
Yes. Agenda item 8 this evening is the treasurer's report.
Good evening. We have before us the financial statements prepared and reviewed for the 8 months ended December 31st, 2018, So we are about 67% through our fiscal year. So I do need to make a quick note. We need to leave a revised flash report, which I did put in each of the dioceses. I have asked the clerk to make sure that gets put into the records. The one that was sent out, the packet last weekend, the top portion is incorrect. So if you make sure you pull the one off your diocese. Like the right one's being shredded up there.
You came prepared.
Okay, so let's look at the flash report then, the corrected one. Total assets are $2,413,000. Liabilities at $595,000. Equity at $1,818,000 for total liabilities and equity equal to our assets of $2,413,000. Revenue for the 8 months ended December 31st is $2,512,000. Expenses are $2,160,000, giving us a net income of $351,000. So we have, as we've done in the past, below our bullet line, we kind of pull out those extraordinary items. You'll note this month we have a number of extraordinary items, and we thought it easiest this month to show them sort of without netting them together, to show them in totality. Next month we'll net them going forward. The Weineke Capital, that's been on there in past reports. That's the revenue received from the Weineke Trust, and that was for repaving the Village Lake Barrington parking lot. The expenses now, they're on the flash report, about 3 or 4 down, $75,614. That was the expense. The parking lot came in less than we expected, so we will spend that $13,000 on other remaining items within the Village Hall. Developer impact fees, that was a source of income to us this year, the $493,000 this past month, I should say. The accountants come in and so any of the fees that we've used for work done in the village are now recognized as income. And then you'll see below that roadwork at $311,000, and then the open space purchase, the federal property of $188,000. Those were used with, paid with impact fee funds. The interesting thing to note is you'll see before we take all these amounts into account, our net income is $352,000. When it all sort of washes through, it's $346,000. So we're pretty much, our regular operation net income is pretty much the same as our net income now. They've all kind of canceled each other out, which is our source of income we use for certain extraordinary expenses. Any questions on that? So it's, I know it's a lot of numbers going through there, but I think that helps put the picture in perspective. Okay, so we'll head off to the actual budget report, page 11 and 12. And you'll see our total revenues are 84% actual to budget. That seems much higher than you would expect about this time of the year. The biggest jump this year was this month we took in all those impact fees this month. So that's really pushed our percentage up. Last month we had 0 impact fee usage, and this month it's at $493,000. So that's the biggest change we have there. Page 12, our expenses. We're 73% actual to budget for the fiscal year. And once again, the biggest jumps are related to use of those impact fees, and that was the recording of the paving for Old Barrington Road and the purchase of the feathering property. You'll see those amounts. The feathering expense, open space, operations expense, open space feathering is $188,000 under other expenses. And we had a big jump in road maintenance, and that was for the paving of Old Barrington Road. Any questions on the general fund? Okay, we can move to page 13, the motor fuel tax fund. No activity this month per se. We're still collecting about $10,000 a month from NMFT. Each month, there's now about $205,000 of available cash in there for future projects for next year, the year after that. Page 17, the water sewer fund. We know about net current assets in there about $1.4 million. We do keep like to hang on to these for operating repairs and so forth, capital repairs, I should say. We have still about $140,000 of planned expenditures in that fund and remaining in fiscal year 19. I'm not sure where we're at on those, but we'll take a look at those in the next, still about 4 months of the fiscal year. And then page 21. You'll note the open space operating account, $100. We spent it all. We spent $100 in there just to keep the account open in case we're going to have some activity in there back and forth. But
You still get the toaster?
yeah.
Shoot.
Doggone.
So there's been a fair amount of activity there this month. In governmental accounting, the asset does not show up on the balance sheet, so that's why you'll see no land on the balance sheet, even though we did purchase the federal property. And that's pretty much all I have for my report, but happy to answer any questions.
We, just for the folks who might watch this subsequently, we had a lengthy committee of the whole meeting where financial matters were discussed. So the lack of questions here is not so much a lack of interest.
And brevity on my part as well, I believe.
We just plowed this ground, so.
Yeah. I did want to thank Deb for stepping in for me last month. I heard she did a great job, and so I know that my job is not secure anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around.
Plan worked.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around, don't worry. You're the most secure of any of us.
I don't know about that. So if we're ready, we can move on to the warrants.
Please.
Okay, so there's really very little unusual this month in the warrant. There is Gasky and Sons request, or it's a final pay request for Old Barrington Road. That is going from impact fees. We have now spent the impact fees for this year, and going forward budgeting, we'll use the ones that we earned during the year. There's a small, it was just discussed in the consent agenda, but on page 3 of the warrant, there's a very lengthy description of the travel expenses by the village administrator. The 151.57 that was in the consent agenda is those 3 items, the 111, the 32, and the $7.70. The number below is mileage that was incurred to travel to the conference. Required by our,
That was to Springfield for the Osler grant.
oh, excuse me, okay, thank you. We're required by our personnel manual to have a roll call vote to approve this, so just point that out. And nothing unusual on warrant B.
Thank you. We talked about this earlier, but the board supports the staff in seeking to enhance their professional knowledge and experience and skill. And so attendance at relevant conferences makes sense, and we are happy to support it. We appreciate the frugality that the staff exercises in managing the public's funds for this purpose. And we are happy to let anybody look online at exactly where the money goes.
Any questions?
Any further questions for the treasurer? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Chair would like a motion to approve in block agenda items 8A through C. A, approve the financial statements as of December 31, 2018. B, pay bills in the amount of $269,991.89 as listed on the accounts payable warrant A dated February 12, 2019. And C, pay bills in the amount of $3,125.99 as listed on the accounts payable warrant B dated February 12, 2019. May I have that motion in block, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Rigby, thank you. May I please have a second?
Second.
By Trustee Perkins. Thank you both, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Rigby?
Aye.
Trustee Perkins?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchell?
Yes.
President Richardson?
Yes, thank you. Agenda item 9 this evening is the administrator's report.
Sure. For our listening audience, I'm proud to announce that the village is in receipt of an Osland grant for development of the Featherling Park in the amount of $192,500. We are waiting for the state to send us the packet of information we need before we can finalize that or accept the grant and do more formal things with that. Also, I'm pleased to say that Lake County DOT will be adding a couple of yellow wayfaring signs for Gray Barn Lane. So this will remove the need for a streetlight at that location. I was a presenter at Flooding, Stormwater, and Green Infrastructure, Thinking Outside the Ordinance on January 29th. To an audience of 35 local officials and residents. We had 64 RSVPs, but unfortunately we picked one of the coldest days of this year to hold that, and that kept some people away. We are working on presenting the program again in warmer weather. Commissioner Carpenter attended on behalf of the Planning Commission. And a group of 5 senior students in the Urban Studies program at UIC has chosen to update the Pepper Road Market Study as their senior project, capstone project. I submitted that proposal last fall to UIC and am looking forward to seeing what the students prepare. So that should be quite fun to work with them. Last week, I attended the ILCMA Winter Conference in Bloomington Normal, and as President Richardson said, networking with peers is invaluable, and I thank you for allowing me to attend this. The sessions were very relevant and interesting. They included implementing TIFs and business development districts, what goes into municipal bond ratings, and how local government is knocking down barriers for business. So a lot of pertinent and timely topics. Last Saturday was the Lake County Municipal League Legislative Breakfast in Round Lake Beach. Congressman Brad Schneider, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, and Senator Dan McConkey were joined by many representatives from Lake County and discussed current affairs in Springfield. And 2 more things. Last Wednesday, the Barrington Area Chamber of Commerce sponsored the annual Economic Summit. Presentations from all of the Baycott villages were given, and in President Richardson's absence, I presented a summary for Lake Barrington, and Treasurer Hirsch was in the audience cheering me on. Thank you. And also, we received a letter today from the Lake County SMC approving our petition for recertification of the Watershed Development Ordinance Enforcement. And they thanked us for our commitment to upholding the WDO development standards in Barrington. So we're all good in that area. So that's it for my report.
Questions for the administrator? Thank you very much. Agenda item 10 this evening is the clerk's report.
I have a few items this month. A reminder that the office is closed on Monday, February 18th in observance of President's Day. Garbage Day will be on its regularly scheduled date on Wednesday. It won't be affected. An update on the Connect CTY on our website. That's an option for people. It's essentially a reverse 911 to get emergency alerts, as well as residents can sign up for emails and e-news options that will give information on events, announcements, and community news. Our administrator suggested that I change the button that's listed as Connect CTY to say emergency alerts, so it would be more clear for people, which I did do that today, so that should be easier for people to find and to sign up for, because not everyone knows what Connect CTY is. So that's done. And then we will be putting that in the next newsletter, information on how to sign up for those for residents, because that's important that they get that information. And then the last thing is Citizens for Conservation dropped off a bunch of these booklets for residents. It is on healthy maintenance practices for homeowners and landscapers. So if anyone's interested in one of these or knows someone, can pick these up at the Village Hall. That's it.
Thank you. Are there questions for the village clerk? Okay, with agenda item 11, we can move to the standing committees. I will combine branding and communications with external relations. I mentioned earlier my attendance at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. There's something interesting. Separate from that, I was on business in the United Kingdom last week and met with a woman named Mims Davies, who is a member of Parliament, and she is the new loneliness minister. And it's a fascinating portfolio because of a desire to help an aging population use a variety of technology and human contact tools to reconnect folks who have been disconnected from their communities. And it really was interesting to hear her talk about it, because it's easy to kind of judge that maybe a senior could become isolated, but she was talking about how children can get equally isolated, especially those who have been the victim of bullying. My first instinct was, well, that's interesting that they would do that. And then after I heard her speak for a while, it actually kind of told me that some of the things we do here on a very small basis for a small community are really about that. The events we do in the fall, whether we do a barn stomp or something else, is a chance to help people get reconnected. Even during the bitter cold, I know that some folks made an effort to reach out to folks who live alone to make sure the heat was on and everything was okay. They are looking to implement a strategy around this, and it really is worth monitoring, because the problems in the developed world around this are getting worse. The downside of technology is that we can't just stay in our house. And I was, she was talking about how young mothers can get isolated too, because everything's focused on the new arrival. And it really helped me think about this challenge in a way that went beyond my original preconceptions on it. So, not exactly on point to things here, but I thought it was an interesting conversation and something worth continuing, especially since we have a committee ourselves on community relations for those kinds of things. The veterans group at LBS kind of thinks it keeps people connected. It's a connection tool. And I've become friends with the minister. She's a very talented woman. And I asked her staff to keep us in charge, or informed rather, because we want to copy them. And they're willing to share their insights with we colonials. So that's my report for this evening. Trustee Thompson is out of town, so unless Karen, you have a report for you, we could skip over.
Let's get it.
Same with Trustee Burke, and we can move to 11E, Finance, HR, and Administration, Trustee Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report, just to comment on your comments, which was about the loneliness minister in Great Britain. I had the privilege of living in Alaska for 4 years during my career. And there's a phenomenon up there that occurs in the wintertime called cabin fever. And it's when people get lonely and they don't come outside of their house because frankly, it's quite a bit warmer there than it is here. but people do remain emotionally and socially isolated up there for months at a time. And it's hard on people, it's hard on the kids. And what we found, particularly with our younger troops up there, was there was a high divorce rate as a result of this phenomenon that occurs, because a lot of time the guys are out in the field or gone someplace for training or what have you, and the spouses are left at home with the kids, and when the guys come back home, there's problems, and so and a lot of social issues, and so anyway, I look at that phenomenon in all neighborhood. I don't see my neighbors from October to literally October to March or April when everybody comes back out again.
It's more serious than we perhaps are conscious of on a day-to-day basis.
And a cell phone won't compensate for it.
That's right. Thank you. Let's see. Further report, Trustee Rigby, I'm sorry.
No, I haven't.
Thank you.
We haven't been doing anything.
We just sat through 2.5 hours of the fact that you and Peggy have done nothing and Debbie have done nothing. So, open spaces and village facilities, Trustee Mitchell.
Just the OSLAC grant, and I want to thank Village Administrator Dawn Lang for definitely bringing the spark, bringing the magic to help us pull that grant over. Great, thank you. That's it, sir.
Okay. Trustee Scheller is not here. Karen, is there any report for him at this time?
No.
Okay. And then 11H, roads and infrastructure, Trustee Perkins.
Thank you. Only thing is Anderson Road project is expected to have pavement cores complete this week. Once the result of the cores are in, the engineer can finish the design, and the project is expected to go out for a bid later this month. The bid opening is expected to be week of March 11th. We've realized that there's a significant cost savings by going out for bids early in the season, so hopefully that rings true this year as well. And
Questions for Trustee Perkins or the administrator on this? Okie doke. You know, folks, this is, look at the rest of this agenda. There's no old business, no ordinances, no resolutions, no new business, so we can move to 16. Second opportunity for the public to address the village board. I see no one seeking recognition. There is no closed session tonight. Now, I want the record to show we started at 7:14 and it is 7:42. I just want to know that when Jim Thompson and Andy Burke and John Scheller aren't here, how quickly these meetings see. I get a bad rap. I get a bad rap all the time on this.
This is a personal best.
That's right, it is a personal best. This is kind of my Olympic gold. And don't get accustomed to it.
Bow to the master.
There, we're on agenda item 19. Absent any further business, Chair would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye, aye.
Okay, we stand adjourned.